Khabib is a UFC fighter from Dagestan whose abilities are undoubted, besides being the most famous Dagestan fighter. After Khabib's success in the UFC, many fighters from Dagestan emerged to climb the ladder to become the best in the UFC. Qinima Sports has summarized various sources and collected 5 of the best Dagestani fighter names to fight in the UFC. Although besides the 5 names on this list, there are many other great fighters who come from a small region in Russia, Dagestan. Here are 5 of the best Dagestani fighters who fought in the UFC. Rustam Khabilov. Rustam Khabilov fights in the same division as Khabib Nurmagomedov, namely the UFC lightweight division. Khabilov was born on November 4, 1986, and is a combat sambo world champion, Bellator lightweight fighter and UFC lightweight division fighter. Rustam Khabilov is one of Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov's students, a trainer who also trained Khabib Nurmagomedov. Even though MMA fans still underestimate him, Rustam Khabilov has a fighting record that should not be underestimated. Rustam Khabilov has a 24-4 MMA record, and has only lost 3 in the UFC from the 13 fights he has fought. Boxing, pankration and sambo are the martial arts skills that are the hallmarks of Rustam Khabilov. Khabilov made his UFC debut on December 15, 2012, against Vink Pichel, and won the fight via technical knockout in the first round. The next 2 fights were won, including his victory against Jorge Masvidal via unanimous decision in 2013. Rustam Khabilov's last fight in the UFC took place on November 9, 2019, against Sergey Kandushko. Khabilov won the fight via unanimous decision in 3 rounds. A month later it was discovered Khabilov signed a multi-fight contract with Bellator MMA. Ramazan Emeev. Ramazan Emeev, born May 20, 1987, is another Dagestani fighter who fought in the UFC welterweight division. Before entering the UFC, Ramazan was the middleweight champion at M1 Global. Ramazan Emeev has a record of 91 at M1 Global, then he signed a contract with UFC on May 28, 2017. In his debut fight, UFC brought Ramazan and Sam Alvey at UFC Fight Night on October 21, 2017. Ramazan managed to win the fight via unanimous decision in 3-round fight. Ramazan Goretz Emeev last fought Jack Della Maddalena at UFC 275 on June 11, 2022. Ramazan Emeev suffered a technical knockout defeat in the first round of the welterweight division. In his MMA career, Ramazan Emeev has a 26 record, while his UFC record is 8-3. Although Emeev has struggled to build momentum in recent years, the Dagestani fighter is now looking to prove that he is still a top fighter to reckon with in the welterweight division. Ramazan Emeev's current statistics in the UFC are 45% striking accuracy, 65% striking defense, 29% takedown accuracy, and 66% takedown defense. Zabit Magomedsharipov. Zabit Magomedsharipov was born on March 1, 1991, and fights in the UFC featherweight division. Apart from fighting in the UFC, Magomedsharipov also fought in the Burkett Absolute Championship and won the featherweight division. Zabit is known as a quiet and smiling fighter, but once inside the octagon fence, he will become a fighter with terrible kung fu skills. Until now, no one has beaten Zabit Magomedsharipov in the UFC, so he is regarded as a potential king in the featherweight division. With his perfect record, Magomedsharipov was ranked 3rd in early 2021. However, due to various injuries and illnesses he experienced, he did not appear long enough at the UFC. Magomedsharipov name disappeared from the UFC ranking list in April 2021. Zabit Magomedsharipov last fought with Calvin Kattar at UFC Fight Night in November 2019. Magomedsharipov managed to win the fight via unanimous decision. Even though Magomedsharipov was kicked out of the UFC rankings and reportedly retired, his coach said that Magomedsharipov was only temporarily out of the fight. Magomedsharipov had just had a minor surgery that required him to take a break from fighting. Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is a former Sambo world champion born October 27, 1991. Makhachev competed in the lightweight division of the UFC and currently holds the belt in the lightweight division. In the UFC pound-for-pound rankings, Makhachev is second behind Alexander Volkanovski, who he will fight in February 2023. Makhachev started his career in MMA in 2010 and managed to make a record of 5 consecutive wins in a year. In 2015, Makhachev joined the UFC and made his debut on May 23, 2015. At that time, Makhachev won his fight against Leo Kuntz via submission rear naked choke in the second round. Despite losing in the second match against Adriano Martinez, he was able to win the next 11 fights without a single defeat, including his most famous fight when he defeated Charles Oliveira at UFC 280 and won the lightweight division belt. Makhachev needed just one more main card fight, and against the best players to become a huge star in MMA. That fighter is none other than Alexander Volkanovski, who currently holds the featherweight belt, and is number 1 on the UFC pound-for-pound list. Makhachev vs Volkanovski will be held at UFC 284, which takes place on 11 February 2023 in Perth, Australia. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib Nurmagomedov is a first Dagestani fighter who can enter the UFC. Khabib Nurmagomedov was born on September 20, 1988, who has a perfect record in the UFC throughout his career. Since making his debut in 2008, Khabib has not been a fighter who has immediately become the center of attention. He had to crawl from the bottom to become the top fighter. Then Khabib became even more of a concern when he won the fight against Al Iaquinta and became the new champion in the UFC lightweight class. That fame exploded even more when he fought Conor McGregor. Khabib's victory over McGregor took the UFC to a wider reach. UFC, which was previously widespread in Europe and America, has now expanded to Middle Eastern countries, which are predominantly Muslim. After that victory, Khabib's popularity shot up sharply, and Khabib's determination from the start at the UFC was increasingly visible when he was at the top. Khabib is clearly an ideal image as a fighter and champion, like the main star in a film. He is a fighter who loves his family, obeys his parents, worships and makes the country proud. So guys, those are the 5 best Dagestan fighters who appeared in the UFC. Don't forget to write your comments below if you have another, more powerful name. Like and share the video if it's useful. Thanks for watching and see you in another video.